law they had on the books was repealed 20 years ago. What would you do to support gifted education in public schools, no matter what district you're in?
I think that's one of the things I hear about the most when I'm walking, and I think it's criminal that, particularly on the east side in our public schools, that we teach to the money middle. And I think that we need to raise the bar for all of our kids, and would look at legislative initiatives that would do that. I think that we have as many kids that are floundering because they're gifted and they're bored as we do the kids that are struggling to read. We of course need to bring our lowest learners up, and we need to focus on that, but not at the exclusion of our kids who are learning at higher levels. And I think we need to do both well.
You know, the way I think about it is what is going to be the best outcome for kids. And to me, you know, in terms of, you know, so this is an area of expertise I don't have. I have no problem saying that. But to me, what I think about is when we mandate something like that, is going to have a better outcome for kids. And absolutely, I believe that we need to have educational opportunities within our public school systems that are meeting each child's needs. But I think that's not about meeting each child by some sort of definition of whether or not they're gifted. It's about meeting individual children's needs as they present in the schools and that child.
You both keep well under a minute.
Hey, there you go.
Another question? Oh, you.
So I'm going to offer up a question that you wanted. So just the General Assembly passed, I think, somewhere around 2 in the morning last night of the budget, merger of the Board of Governors of Higher Education with the Rhode Island Department of Education. I would like to know from each of you, as with everybody else in this room, what do you think about that merger? And I'm going to ask my subset of questions so that you won't forget that you're doing that. And that is, do you have any opinion on whether or not there may have been research completed to that boosted the General Assembly leadership to push this through and get this bill passed? And what would you do about it should you get in?
And I guess it's Gayle. Yes.
Right, so obviously these two groups serve different functions, and it's, you know, I think when we're talking about education, we do need to look at the totality of education for a child and figure out that there are kids that are, you know, coming into our system, kindergarten, going through high school, all the way up through high school and into college, and how are we going to meet those needs in a way in which public education is viable for every child. And to me, public education also means going to community college or college in Rhode Island. You know, I don't know whether or not there was research to figure out whether or not that was done, and I assume that was done as a cost savings measure, and I don't know whether or not it was done as a cost savings measure without taking into account what would be the best outcome for a child in education. And I think that ultimately, when you're making a decision about who to vote for in this, it's really about trying to determine people's, the values of the people you're sending up there. And is that, you know, is it that, sorry, the chirping maybe lost my train of thought, but, you know, you keep
You're
your
just talking about the values of the people.
Right. So you're looking at the values of the people, and you think, okay, they might not know absolutely everything about this, but can they figure out the answer in a way that they are going to keep within the values that I agree with?
You get a minute and a half.
Okay, great. As I watched that hearing on the merger of the boards, my heart was sick because I was up at the State House lobbying on behalf of kids in public education, and it broke my heart to see it happen at 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, talking about some important issues, which is we have to fix our public education system. But unfortunately, it was done with no public input, with no feedback whatsoever, and I would rest assured, unless somebody knows differently, I'm sure no research. I think the problem they were trying to solve, this wasn't the solution to that problem. And you know, my understanding is you know, they were solving a problem that didn't actually exist in that way. I've gone to every Regents meeting, almost every Regents meeting in the past 3 years. They have so much work to do. They have backlogs of work and hours of work. I don't see how one board can serve both K-12 system, which is incredibly robust, as well as the higher ed system. I think there's some other ways to accomplish that, but anything that we do that's in the dead of the night without public input, I think we have to say, this smells somehow, there's something wrong with this, and I would love for us to put an end to things that just get passed through as budget amendments. This is not part of the budget, in my humble opinion.
Now?
Yes, I have a question about marriage equality. I actually am a sitting senator from neighboring Pawtucket, and I'm the only openly lesbian senator in the General Assembly. And I want to know, when the House passes the bill, as I hope that it does next year, and it comes over to the Senate, I have two questions. What have you done, what have each of you done already on the issue of marriage equality? And when the Senate gets the bill and one of you is up there, what are you going to do to help me get the entire Senate?
So as I mentioned, 30 years ago I came out, my partner's in the second row. We have 2 kids, and our youngest one also has 2 dads who live 6 blocks away. So this is our reality. This is something that we're living. I remember being in the 80s working on fighting, being up at the State House on gay and lesbian rights. At that point there was no T and there was no, there was no B even in the conversation. And I remember sitting in the State House and I remember weeping. I was a young 20-something-year-old woman at the hatred and from people that call themselves Christians. No harm intended by that, but it was so painful. And I think we've come so far, and yet we have so much further to go. I would certainly champion this issue, but we have to remember this is a beginning, it's not an end point. It's not going to stop the kid who's getting bullied at school next week when school starts. It's not going to let us file joint income taxes together at the federal level. So we have so much more work to go, but if 2013 is the year, I would clearly be a champion, as I have for many, many years, around full equality for all Rhode Islanders.
like a happy sound. Thank you for that question. I too obviously support marriage equality and have been at the State House, being one of the people in the room and when Marriage Equality Rhode Island was doing protests in the rotunda. I've gone to marriage equality fundraisers, but I think that doesn't really speak to the commitment. That's just kind of a token example of the commitment. I mean, I work every day at the Women's Fund of Rhode Island on equality issues generally, and that includes it includes particularly focus on equality for lesbian women as well. But I see that as a totality of how you view civil rights, and for me, that's a non-negotiable. I mean, it's appalling to me that it has not gotten through, and I actually view marriage equality as being something that I think, as new senator, when you come in, you at least you have the opportunity to say, look, this is what's really important to me, and this is going to be a non-negotiable, and that's absolutely one of the issues that will be right there for me as being a non-negotiable.
I guess I need to ask candidates